Okay, so continuing where we left off, this is the last effects video and the last video in the series of this frog outline. And so here's some cool things that you can do. I added a drop shadow. Can you see how the frog looks like he's casting a shadow on top of the leaf? And we were looking at doing that grain texture. So I had, remember that there's a couple of very important things you want to remember. This image right here is good just the way it is. It has a few different special effects to it. It has a gradient in the background. It has a little bit of a texture on the tongue and some texture on the leaves. And it looks just fine just the way it is. You don't want to get crazy with it and start texturizing everything because then it's going to look so busy and so overwhelming that it's really going to be unattractive. So definitely experiment and play. That's why you want to make more than one copy. Play with all of the effects with the copy and then pick the ones you like the best and submit a final piece. Don't submit something in that has all of these effects just thrown in there with like no real design sense. So let's try to keep that in mind. So the other thing is remembering that before you apply an effect, you have to have something selected. So I'm going to select this leaf. I'm just going to show you how I applied the drop shadow. I went up to effect. And right now, for the last two lessons, we're just in effect because everything else you've done, you've got all of your shapes filled in with colors, all of your shapes identified and defined, and now you really want to just play around. And what I did was I went to stylize and I added in a drop shadow. And be careful because it'll apply effects over each other. So if you don't like something, it's best to just go Control Z and then try it again. But here, in this particular opacity, meaning how dark or how light something is, a lot of times when you add in a drop shadow, you have your item selected and you want to add a drop shadow in, it's going to add the shadow in at 75%. And I just want to let you know that changing it to 45% makes it look a little bit more realistic. But you can do whatever you'd like. So I'm going to go OK. And there I added another drop shadow in, and I didn't really want that. So I'm going to go Control Z. It added more of a drop shadow in here, and we don't really need that. So it's too much now. But I do want to leave it right here underneath the frog. Okay? And so I kind of like that. I have a nice gradient in the background. I've got some gradients in the stars. It looks really smooth and clean in the sky. We've got, you know, some grainy texture on the leaf. We could probably add some grain to this as well. Got a little bit of texture on the tongue, and I'm really happy with that. And I was playing around with the eyes, and I'll show you that real quick. I'm going to select the outermost ellipse, go up to Effect, and go to Warp. And you can get some super cool effects with Warp, like you can bulge. Okay, and then we're going to get an effect over that. So that's pretty cool. And you can do all kinds of things. You select whatever you want. So I'm going to select the inner ellipse right now. And then I'm going to go to Warp, and let's fish. I don't know what that does. Okay. That doesn't look very good. Let's undo that. So some things you're going to like, some things you're not going to like. And then, oh my gosh, there's so many things you can do, so let's not spend so much time on it. I guess the challenge would be to get them both to look the same. After you start adding the special effects, you might have to end up isolating that layer and just copying and pasting that eye onto the other side so they look the same, so he doesn't look like he's all cockeyed. But anyway, okay, on to the next thing. Ooh, special effects can get a little crazy sometimes. So let's just take a look at what's happening here. And I was just, again, playing with the special effects. There is like that's kind of funny. You just see the eyes and the... anyway, so here we are selecting these two leaf shapes. And I'm going to select that leaf shape. And what I did to apply this was I went up to Effect, of course, because that's where we're going to be working on. For the next two lessons, you're going to be up in Effects. Just playing around with effects. Remember, making two copies of your frog outline and playing with one and experimenting and then maybe finishing off another one and submitting that assignment as your final product for this. And in order to decide what you really like, you're going to have to play around with it. And this sketch right here gives you all of these different types of things you could do with them. But texture is pretty cool. So I added a mosaic tile to this, and there's all kinds of things. You can do that to it. You can make it look like it's on watercolor paper. And what I did was I applied, and that's kind of a cool leaf pattern right there. And then there's this, which is very graphic, and I don't think it's appropriate for the leaf. But I picked the mosaics, and I put a grain over it, because I like the way it softened it up. So you can mix them up too, and of course intensity and contrast and so on. So let's go okay. And that's how I got that effect. And I'm really happy with the way that looks. And then the body, I was playing around with this really cool effect right here. And this one definitely is a little busy. I probably would change it around. I don't think I would keep all of this stuff on here. And I can't remember what I used for that. But you're just going to have to play around with it. There's so many things you can do. Maybe it was one on this. There's just so many. Oh, there it is. It's accented edges. I think that's what it is. Yep. And so, that's even more than that. That's a little bit too much for me. Take that off. Anyway, so whatever you do to the body, you should do to the legs. I think, like, this doesn't look so great. So I probably will change this all around. But this is my practice one. I was playing with the stars, and again, I showed you in the last video how I was playing around with the Gaussian blur and getting all those cool effects with the Gaussian blur. And then what's up here? Let's see. My original one, right? Always want to keep the original one intact. Oh, and then we were pixelating. I was pixelating in this one. So what I did was I made a gradient on the leaves, and then I decided, well, if this is a chameleon, he might be crawling along the leaf and maybe trying to change into the leaf colors. And I pixelated his body in a color halftone, which made it really big pixels. And so you can actually start telling a story with your artwork. And this one was some effects that I pixelated. It was a mezzotint, which is a pretty cool effect. You know, I don't know if I want all of these effects. Like, I wouldn't want to mix this star with this star. I would either do this or this. I wouldn't do everything. And I might just decide to really just leave the stars alone and not do anything to them. This one, I went up to effects and I went to pixelate and I did a color halftone on that one. This is what it would look like if we pointillized it. Okay, so that kind of thing. And, you know, and there's a mezzotint on the moon. So these are all the different things you can do. Remember, select an item. This is a grain on here. So I went up to select the item, effect, and I went to stylize, and actually I went to texture and grain. And then I put the grain on the foot. And there's just so much you can do. You can just keep playing with things. It keeps just giving you more and more. Let's see, we diffuse that a little bit so you have a glow along the edge. You know, it's whatever you like. It's whatever your personal taste is. That might be a cool thing to actually put the glow on the foot, then select the body, go up to effect, and go up to stylize and add a drop shadow. And let's see what will happen there. And then we have a drop shadow. So we have this glowing foot and then this drop shadow here. And the more I add the right kinds of effects, the better it looks and the more I get a three-dimensional effect. But again, pick and choose carefully what you want to do. At first, just play around with it and really have fun. And then after that, pick and choose what you really want to do with it. Don't keep everything because it'll be way too busy. So anyway, have fun.